This is the Pursuit of Wellness podcast, and I'm your host, Mari Llewellyn. Hi guys, welcome back to another solo episode. I'm so excited to have you here today. We are talking all things mental health. I am giving you some tips, tricks, tools, things I've used throughout my journey with mental health that have really helped me and gotten to a place where I truly feel like my mental health is no longer dictating my day, my relationships, the way I feel. I've really honed in on certain routines and habits that ensure that I am in my best possible mental state. Just having been through periods of time in my life where I really felt like mental health was kind of running everything that I was doing. And you guys know, if you've listened to my journey before, how sort of detrimental my mental health has been in the past and how much I've struggled with it. So I've really I've tried a lot of different things to get to where I am now. If you're watching this episode on video, I am wearing a hat and I don't have makeup on today because I got microneedling done, which is a part of my acne scarring journey. So my skin looks a little bit crazy. So if you're watching on camera, hi. But I wanted to make sure I showed up for you guys today. I would never skip an episode. So here we are. And we're going to talk all things mental health. I feel like I'll give a little bit of context for people who don't know my history with mental health, kind of to just start from all the way at the beginning without, I never really go into too much detail on my family or childhood and things like that, because it's like a, private, other people involved type of thing. But I was born in London, moved to Switzerland, moved back to England, moved to New York. I've lived in Philly, I've lived in Colorado, I've lived in LA. I've moved around a ton my whole life. And that was kind of the childhood I had. I was also really lucky in the fact that we got to travel a ton. I was exposed to a lot of different cultures. But my dad worked for the United Nations, which meant we were constantly hopping around. And I think that definitely contributed to this feeling of yes, on one hand, I feel like I'm pretty adaptable and pretty good in emergency situations where I need to just kind of make things work. But at the same time, I think this feeling of instability and never really fitting in and not understanding where I'm from is a big part of who I am. So just to give context on that, but I feel like I grew up a pretty anxious kid. When I think back on my childhood, there was a lot of worry happening, a lot of tears, crying myself to sleep type of thing, which sounds sad, but I think I just kind of had a lot of dark thoughts happening. And I was really worried about people in my life passing away and just kind of hyperfixating on things that weren't really happening. But at the same time, there were, my household was pretty tumultuous, a kind of explosive environment where I never really learned how to have constructive emotional conversations without it ending in tears or yelling. So I do think that there are parts of my childhood that definitely contributed to the things I struggled with later on in life. My parents ended up divorcing when I was a junior in high school. And that was a really big moment for my family because it was just the four of us in the US. The rest of our families, in the UK and Italy, all over the place. So that was a really big moment. And I feel like I always could tell that I was an emotional, I don't want to use the word emotional. I just was in a more expressive, emotional person in my house. And I could tell that I struggled with anxiety and maybe a bit of depression here and there, but I didn't know what it was for a very long time. I thought maybe I was just quote unquote sensitive or quote unquote high maintenance, which were words that were used to describe me, which makes me feel sad now. But I was put in therapy pretty young. I've been in therapy since I was 14 years old because my parents thought that I had ADD because I struggled so badly with school. So I was put in therapy basically to be diagnosed with ADD, which I was, and put on medication for the ADD. Looking back, I don't particularly think that I had ADD. I did struggle focusing and I did struggle with school, but I think more so I was kind of like just checked out because I was struggling so much at home. I think I was just not really there. And I was a pretty quiet, shy kid. So I think it was difficult to tell what was really going on with me from an outside perspective. But I had exposure to therapy from a young age. And that was kind of a blessing, honestly, because I didn't even really end up talking about the ADD that much. I ended up talking about what was going on at home, struggling with friendships in school, things like that. I feel like I really just went inward at that time. I wasn't really being myself at school and high school in particular. I didn't feel comfortable sharing what was happening. I didn't know how to put it into words. I didn't even know if it was really wrong. So that was a really interesting time for me. And I definitely had zero confidence. I was a very insecure, very shy person. And I think it took a really long time for me to build up this sense of confidence because I felt like a lot of the kids around me knew each other since kindergarten, and I was coming in brand new from the UK with a weird accent, saying words wrong, just feeling completely misplaced. And I think when, senior year came around and I was getting ready to go to college, I just felt so ready to get out of my house and get into a new environment and kind of start fresh, because I felt like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I knew that everyone was starting fresh at a new school. Like all of us were brand new. None of us knew each other. Being a freshman in college is like such a cool opportunity to start over again. And I think I went into it with that mindset, just being so excited and ready to embrace it. And I kind of did that. And in a positive way, I felt more confident than I probably ever had felt before. And I was putting myself out there and saying yes to everything and really being social and meeting new people, and made some really good friends. But at the same time, I think I also discovered ways of numbing the pain I felt with alcohol and partying, and making sure I was never alone, and making really impulsive, sometimes dangerous decisions just to ensure that I wasn't alone with my thoughts or feeling the feelings that I didn't want to feel. So this was the time where I feel like things started to escalate with my mental health, and they actually became quite damaging to my, everyday life. And it was around junior year of college that I was actually diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I think my therapist had had premonitions for a while, just based on my characteristics and things I did. And she suggested that I go to a psychiatrist in Philadelphia, which I did. She agreed that I had borderline personality disorder and put me on a number of medications. So it's an interesting thing to think about, because at the time, I think it was necessary for me to go on medication. I was self-harming regularly. So like, trigger warning here, but like cutting regularly, doing dangerous behaviors, getting, blackout drunk, putting myself in bad situations. So I am grateful that I was put on medication. But at the time, it was too much. And I'll definitely go into more detail on this further in the episode. But that was like my main struggle at that point in my life. I am currently in my acne scar healing era, and I'm kind of doing everything I can for the scarring. I actually just got microneedling done, and something they told me would be really beneficial in the healing process was red light. And I was like, perfect. I have just the product, and that is my Bond Charge red light face mask. Bond Charge is a holistic wellness brand with a huge range of evidence-based products to optimize your life in every way. Founded on science and inspired by nature, all Bond Charge products adopt ancestral ways of living in our modern day world. Their extensive range of premium wellness products help you sleep better, perform better, have more energy, and recover faster. Balance hormones, reduce inflammation. The list is endless. My personal favorite is the Bond Charge red light face mask. It's so easy to habit stack. You can read, you can meditate, you can make dinner. It's really easy to use on the go. Plus, it's so beneficial for wrinkles and fine lines, eczema, migraines, acne, scar tissue, wound healing, razor burns, ingrown facial hair, and so much more. All you have to do is use it for 10 to 20 minutes a day. So nice and easy to use while habit stacking. It boosts collagen and elastin production. It's super lightweight on the face and doesn't get hot. Plus, I really like it because they have zero EMF radiation, zero flicker, a 1-year warranty, and they removed all the circadian and disrupting blue light from the mask that could affect your sleep. Go to boncharge.com and use coupon code PURSUIT to save 15% off. That is BONCHARGE.com and use coupon code PURSUIT to save 15%. A big part of my job is sitting down and prepping for guests. It can take days, hours. It's a lot of focus. And I like to have some kind of noise in the background, but I cannot listen to music while I'm trying to focus. I need something that's got no lyrics in it. And that's where I found Brain FM. It's an app built for professionals seeking productivity boosts. They create science-backed music that syncs brain patterns, helping you focus better, relax deeper, and sleep easier. It has had such a benefit on my daily life. It can help you relax, fall asleep, focus, whatever it may be. It can really solve a problem for you. Their patented technology is proven to boost focus brainwaves by 119% in just 5 minutes, helping you find and stay in flow. They have different audio modes like deep work, creative, motivation to meet your exact needs. There's also turbo mode for ADHD support, which I've tried suggesting to Greg and I think would really benefit him. Brain FM is the only music company supported by the National Science Foundation to improve people's focus. Unlock your brain's full potential free for 30 days by going to brain.fm/pow. That is brain.fm/pow for 30 days free. Currently, I no longer meet the criteria for BPD. I haven't self-harmed in years. I haven't really done impulsive, dangerous behaviors in years. There's still some lingering sort of like abandonment things from BPD that I think will always sort of be something for me to work on. But I really want to talk to you guys about how I got from the place of really having BPD run my life to where I am now. And now I feel like I'm struggling a bit more with other things. Like I feel like my journey has kind of just evolved. And now I struggle more so with anxiety and OCD-like tendencies. And it's a lot more manageable, but it's still apparent in some parts of my life. And I want to talk to you guys about, tools I use to manage it. I do think there's mental health issues that are environmental and some are genetic and some are both. I think I was born with a predisposition for mental health struggles, and then environmentally, they've now discovered that BPD is a trauma-based disorder. So I do think parts of my childhood and certain relationships did lead to me being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And I just want anyone listening who may have that diagnosis or know someone with it, that it is not a death sentence. I think when I first heard that diagnosis, I really thought that I was doomed, because if I were to look it up online at the time, it said no therapist will work with someone with BPD. It's a highly manipulative disorder, basically suggesting that people with this disorder are evil and difficult to work with and explosive. And honestly, reading that, I think I was just coming from a place of feeling so empty and sad all the time. It was well, how am I going to have someone help me if this is their belief about me? And, this is really dark, but I also read online many people with BPD end up committing suicide, which for me was really terrifying because, I was so in this hole with BPD for a while where I did think I wouldn't really care if I died. That was my thought process back then, which is so horrible to think about now. But I truly didn't really care if I lived or died. I just didn't want to feel anything anymore. So reading that online was very discouraging and kind of made me feel well, what's the point in trying? So if you are listening and you have that diagnosis, I just want you to know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a lifetime diagnosis. I think so many people told me I would have BPD forever, and that clearly is not the case. So I do want to put that out there. And I also just want to say mental health is an always evolving journey. Like I have good seasons, bad seasons, but I think ultimately, as long as we're being intentional about prioritizing, making time to take care of our brains and doing things every day that's going to benefit our mental health, that's all we really can do. So just to kind of speak specifically to the things I've struggled with and things I've done, and then I'll kind of move into general tools for mental health. To give you guys a definition of borderline personality disorder, it's characterized by severe mood swings, impulsive behavior, and difficulty forming stable personal relationships. I think that's an okay definition. I think everyone sort of struggles differently with BPD, but it is a trauma-based disorder. A lot of people with BPD struggle with a core sense of identity. I think oftentimes when it comes from a place of neglect or whatever's going on in the household, it's this feeling of like, well, who really am I if I don't have love from certain people or I don't feel validated from certain people? The way that I always described it when I was going through it was like I had third-degree burns on my emotions. So really like anything could make me feel like I was in severe pain and almost this like unbearable feeling of like emptiness. And this is so dark, but like I really felt like just hurting all the time. And it made it difficult to do everyday tasks, like going to the grocery store, interacting with a stranger on the street, like everything triggered me and hurt. And my way of dealing with that was to make sure I never felt any of it. So for me, that showed up in, drinking, partying, impulsive behaviors, and then having these episodes. Like I would have these crying, screaming, like, please help me, cutting, like just really explosive episodes. And I think it was really scary for me. It was scary for Greg when I was, in a relationship with Greg. And I had to pretty quickly figure out how to fix this. So once I was put on the medication, one of the first things I ever did was group therapy. And I think that group therapy was a really beneficial thing for me to do because it was the first time where I felt like I was being validated and I could see other people struggling with the same thing that I did who were, normal, nice people. And I was like, oh, I'm not this like crazy monster like I read on the internet. I felt like I was in this group of people who could relate and we could share stories and examples with each other. And I felt really seen in that group back in Philadelphia. I also started doing DBT skills. So I actually purchased DBT workbooks. This stands for Dialectical Behavioral Therapy. It's a tool that they use for BPD. I think they use it for bipolar. There's a few different disorders, but also just emotional regulation in general. I think DBT is fantastic for. It's very tools based. So using tools like mindfulness or even holding ice instead of self-harming, like tools you could use rather than doing the unhealthy behaviors that I was doing at the time. So I was working on that as well. I also really leaned into using my therapist as a tool and would call her mid-episode, would make sure I got on the phone with her. I also switched therapists at a certain point. I found someone who was BPD specific, which was so, so helpful for me because I felt like my therapist before was sort of just like a general therapist who maybe didn't have the best understanding of the disorder. And I actually managed to find someone who had a very similar background to me, struggles with certain people in their lives and similar backgrounds. So I felt like she really understood me. And together we also did a lot of trauma work. We worked through things and situations in my head that were causing a lot of the pain that I felt as an adult. So those are some of the things I did for BPD. I will say it took me, let's say I was diagnosed probably 2014, 2015. It's taken me years to get to where I am now. And there were points in my journey where I thought it was never going to end and I was going to always be someone having episodes and on the bathroom floor. But I genuinely have not had an episode now in over a year, maybe over 2 years. So it does get better and it does take work. Like I think you need to be willing to put in the work and want things to get better for yourself. So similar with fitness. Like I was ready and willing to embrace the change. And to speak a bit more to like my current day mental health challenges, I would say anxiety and also OCD patterns have been a big part of my current life. So it's funny because I think my fitness journey was so life-changing in so many beneficial ways, but I also think it introduced the idea of control for me. And I was so out of control for so long and felt so at the whim of my emotions that when I learned to control them through my fitness journey and learned, okay, like I can have this insanely rigid routine and have these rituals, and if I do them, I feel safe. That stuck in my head and I think has been a little bit of something I have to check in on every now and again as I've evolved, because yes, it was so beneficial for me on my fitness journey to be that rigid and that disciplined. But now sometimes when I try and let go a little bit or relax or sort of change the routine, I feel like my brain is screaming at me like, no, things have to be a certain way. Like you have to be at your desk 9 to 5. You have to check off all these boxes. You have to work out this way. You have to eat this way. You have to do this way. There are family members of mine who have traits of this, and I've seen it multi-generational. And I think growing up, we always called it, oh, we're just stressy people, or we're just anxious people. We're just always on edge. And now I feel like I see it so much clearer and I see it in myself. So that's something I have been working on with my therapist. And I'm kind of at the beginning of that because BPD was always so much more the issue that I didn't really get time to dedicate to it. But my OCD kind of shows up more in like brain locking. Like I cannot let go of a thought, and once I am on the thought, it runs through my head all day, legitimately like every 30 seconds, even if I don't want to think about it. So, and I also get obsessed with fixing it. Like if I think something's an issue, my obsession with solving the problem immediately becomes just all I can see and all I can think about. And then obviously I've had a bit of like obsessive tendencies with routine, with health and things like that. You guys know I am such a big fan of lab testing. I think it's so important to see what's going on in your body before entering a health journey, or even if you just want to optimize where you're at right now. And I personally love Function Health. It's comprehensive testing with personalized insights from top doctors. It's co-founded by Dr. Mark Hyman, who has been on my show before. He's incredible. And I really think this company is going to change the way we approach medicine. It has 100+ lab tests, biological age, Alzheimer's, stress, aging, cancer detection, autoimmune, and more. I recently got all my lab tests done and I got my results back, and I'm actually going to be going over them with Dr. Mark Hyman himself. All you need to do is schedule your lab tests, instantly schedule your 100+ lab tests with a leading provider across 2,000 locations. Get your results. They include insights derived from top doctors and thousands of hours of research, your detailed written clinician summary, and phone calls for any critical results. This detailed attention ensures you're not just collecting data, but also gaining actionable insights to take charge of your health. Take action, test again, and test every few months to see your health progress over time. I have done the test myself. I'm so excited to go over the results and see what more I can improve on. Don't forget to go back to episode 106 where Dr. Mark Hyman came on the show. He's also coming on for part 2, so just wait for that. It's now FSA and HSA eligible, transparent pricing, comprehensive testing. It's time to own your health. To join a Function Health, go to functionhealth.com/POW and use code POW100 to skip the waitlist, available to up to 1,000 listeners. As you guys know, in 2017, I lost over 90 pounds, and I wish I had had more tools to help me with my metabolism back then. And I recently heard of Lumen. It is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know whether you're burning fat, carbs, and gives you a tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. I personally had a really hard time figuring out, okay, how much do I need to eat in order to lose weight but keep my muscle? and this could be a really, really helpful tool. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism. It gives you a personalized nutrition plan for the day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on with your body. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause, which I think is absolutely amazing. And it adjusts your recommendation to your metabolism based on those hormonal shifts. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/pow to get 15% off your Lumen. That is lumen.me/pow for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. That's the type of thing where I'm working on it with my therapist. I've ordered books, a book called Brain Lock, which is on the way right now. And I'm still learning tools specifically for that diagnosis. But I want to hop into the tools I use in general for someone, even if you're listening and you don't resonate with these diagnoses or you don't have a diagnosis, you're just someone who maybe needs extra help showing up in your day positively, feeling your best, feeling mentally sound. These tools are going to be really beneficial for you as well. And these are just ways I've set my life up, I think, that have just greatly benefited me. And as someone who I feel like I'm always, if I don't take care of myself and I'm not proactive, I am someone who will slip into anxiety or depression or just not show up the way I want to. So the first tool is obviously therapy. I think that's such a big one and one that's been consistent for me. Even if I feel like I have nothing to talk about on a week, I hop on anyway and we end up having a productive session. I talk to her once a week, sometimes more. I'm also trying hypnotherapy right now, which has been really great for the obsessive like tendencies. It's kind of like a meditation / hypnotherapy. Like she's really talking to me and I'm just like subconsciously listening. And that's been huge. The next bullet is optimal nutrition and whole foods. I have gone both ends of the spectrum when it comes to food. I've been someone who completely ignores nutrition, has tons of sugar and caffeine and not nutrient-dense foods. And I saw what that did to my mental health and to my body. And I think it really set me up for failure. I think when I was in the throes of my BPD and I was not taking care of myself and drinking tons of alcohol and whatever, I really think it was exasperating the feelings I was already having. And then when I went on my fitness journey, upon switching to whole foods and eating salmon and blueberries and olive oil, things that were really benefiting my brain, like brain healthy food, I think I was just giving myself a leg up to work from, like a much more even energy release and more even mood, the omegas my brain needed. I think nutrition is such a key part of mental health. I think it's a key part of absolutely everything. I also feel that way about exercise. I think the endorphins we get from exercise are so beneficial for someone who struggles with mental health or needs an extra boost. It's also a very mindful practice. If you're lifting weights or doing Pilates, you're not on your phone, you're paying attention to your body, you're in the moment. I think there's so much benefit that can come from moving our bodies. Even if you just go on a walk, I think there's like brain scans online. You can look up at the way our brains light up when we go on a walk. It's just nothing compares. So I think getting outside, exercise, sunshine, such serotonin boosters. I also think things like cold plunge or a cold shower, especially if you're someone who still goes through episodes or gets really emotionally dysregulated, that kind of thing could completely reset the body. Holding ice, putting your face in ice water, these are things that really like shock the system and help you get out of the headspace you're in. I really love red light therapy. I think it's definitely physically beneficial, but I think just sitting in front of it and having a moment of meditation is incredible. I always habit stack because if you're just sitting in front of a red light, there's so many things you could be doing at the same time, like reading or meditating. I always listen to my Superhuman app activations because it puts me in the exact headspace I want to be in. Let's say I'm public speaking that day. I actually did this when I went to Harvard. I'll play confidence boosting, getting in my own body, feeling good about myself, ready to perform type of affirmation or activation. There's so many, like wake up feeling grateful, go to bed feeling grateful. There's even getting pregnant ones. There's going on a vacation. There's going on a night out. There's winding down. There's so many different ones that could fit for you. I also just want to add, guys, Mimi is a close friend of mine. She's the founder of Superhuman app, and she gave us like such a good deal for power listeners. So you can get a 14-day free trial. Highly recommend you try it if you're going through anything or just want to have a better start to your day. It's truly life-changing. And you can get over 60% off your membership if you use code POW. I'll put the link in the description box for you guys. Genuinely, I wouldn't be talking about Superhuman app if I didn't think it was so beneficial. It has changed my life. And what I love is that you can listen to it in front of the red light, on a walk, getting ready for the day, driving in the car, whatever it may be. So yeah, that's been life-changing. I would also say, and this is kind of funny, but like animals or pets. I think animals are just instinctually such a calming presence for us. Like, when I used to have my episodes, my therapist would tell me, go hold Lulu, like just listen to her breathing, pet her, just watch her like exist. And it just is so calming. Like I used to just hold her when I was really going through it. I feel like I could cry thinking about it because she's really been there for me through my absolute worst. And just like this sense of peace and mindfulness when you're with an animal. I feel the same way when I'm on a horse or when I'm in my chicken coop. It just brings you back down to earth and reminds you of what's really important as well. So if there's anything you can do, even if you don't have an animal at home, go be around them. I think it's so soothing and calming and gets you outside, gets you on a walk, whatever it may be, and get your phone away and just be with the animal you care about. With that said, I also think activities with no phone are so beneficial. Like horseback riding for me, maybe biking, kayaking, swimming, things where you physically cannot be on your phone and you're just present in the activity you're doing and really paying attention. I think it's so crucial. Like when the feeling I get when I get off of a horse after an hour is just like a full brain reset, serotonin boost on top of the world. And it could be anything. It could be hiking, any activity you enjoy, painting. Just push yourself to get out there and do an activity instead of scrolling or sitting at a desk or whatever it is. Like make your weekend a time where you're doing these activities. I feel like it's so important for us as human beings to do things like this. And slowly but surely, we're doing less and less of these fun activities. So I'd really encourage you guys. I think it's so good for the brain. And then also just being around supportive people, asking for help, sharing how you feel. I think for a long time, I really self-isolated and had a hard time opening up to people because I didn't want to appear weak or crazy or whatever my brain was telling me. But I think sharing and being around people, it also, I don't know, not in the same way it did in college when I was partying and like just doing anything not to be alone. But now being around other people brings a sense of calm and support that brings me a lot of joy in a very healthy, wholesome way. So that's the last tool I would say has really, really helped me. And again, I have good days and bad days. I still have moments where I really struggle with things, but I think in general, my resilience has improved so much. There's pretty much anything you can throw at me, I know I'm going to be able to handle in a pretty, regulated way, which is such a triumph for someone who used to feel like I could be knocked off my feet by absolutely anything, the way someone looked at me or talked to me or just any interaction. I feel so much stronger in myself, so much more confident and grounded. And it's such a gift that I guess I've given myself through years of work and kind of honing in on this routine. And I know for anyone listening, going through it or needing extra advice, like you got this. It just takes time. It takes repeated habits. And it's so, so worth it in the long run to feel good every single day and feel in control of your own emotions and feel a sense of freedom in that you can handle what life is going to throw at you. So anyway, I love you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to hit follow or subscribe, whether you're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. hit the subscribe button. We're posting about 3 times a week on Pursuit of Wellness right now. Leave a review if you enjoyed it. Let me know what you want to hear next, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thanks for joining us on the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. To support this show, please rate and review and share with your loved ones. If you want to be reminded of new episodes, click the subscribe button on your preferred podcast or video player. You can sign up for my newsletter to receive my favorites at marilewellen.com. It will be linked in the show notes. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson, Fiona Attix, and Kelly Kyle. This show is edited by Mike Fry, and our video is recorded by Luis Vargas. You can also watch the full video of each episode on our YouTube channel at Mari Fitness. Love you, Power Girls and Power Boys. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team.